Hello everyone, I'm Rafael, today's host on this presentation about leading change initiatives, and I would like to welcome you all to another SoftExpert webinar where we want to bring the best content on business excellence. Today we have a special guest. Her name is Gina Abudi. She is a management consultant, a trainer, and advisor on leadership development, talent management strategies, and human resource projects focusing on process improvements. The subject that she's going to present today is often asked by most managers and CEOs. It's about changes, or better, how to start and put in practice change initiatives. She will explore and guide on the main issues encompassed on this theme and show everything that is important and must be taken in consideration when dealing with leading changes in a corporate environment. Well, I wish you all a great webinar with Gina.
Thank you very much. And for the person who's doing the taping back there, my husband is very jealous. When I do presentations, he can't get me to stand still. And when he tries to tape it, I'm all over the place until he finally throws up his hands in the back of the room, walks out, and just leaves it recording. And then maybe I'll wander in front of it on occasion, is what he says. Today I'm going to talk about change and leading change initiatives. And I'm going to give you kind of a feel for what is a one-day workshop for a lot of my clients. But we're going to go through a lot of discussions. So it is not going to be me up here talking. It's going to be you working at your tables, working through some discussion topics, and then we're going to share that information, right? I want to tell you about 3 stories of 3 change initiatives before we start. One, and they're all working with universities, whose names we will keep quiet. One of them was a university who wanted to get, HR wanted to get a better grip on utilization of resources, and particularly resources within the HR group. They had a number of people who had been with the university for a number of years, and frankly, as they said, quote, "We don't know what they're doing," unquote. They come in every day, things seem to get done, but we just don't know what they're doing. We have no idea anymore what their role is or what their responsibilities are. We're not saying we want to get rid of them. We're simply saying we want to understand what they do, because we know we need HR resources in other areas, but we can't make the case to bring on resources till we figure out what everybody's doing, because this is what's being asked of us. So what they wanted me to do was come in and meet with the people and understand what they were doing, understand more about their role. If you were one of these people, what are you thinking? Go ahead. I'm going to get fired. Well, the free ride is over. The party's done. Now I have to work, right? So people are really panicked about this. And I said, "Did you talk to the group at all yet that I'm coming in?" And they said, "Oh, yes, I did. They know you're coming in next week." I'm like, "Oh, good. That's helpful." So that's 2 steps back. Let's figure this out. I said, "Okay, so what I'd like to do is reach out to them first individually and talk to them a little bit more about when I'm coming in. Because when I come in to talk with them, I can tell you we're going to get nowhere. There's going to be big walls put up. We're not going to get anywhere. Because they're going to be really concerned about their jobs, right? And what you're doing, looking at what they're trying to do, you know, the kind of work they're doing and why you're looking at that." So the woman I'm working with says to me, "Oh, we're not getting rid of everybody. We just might redeploy them to other areas." Did you tell them that? No. Wouldn't they know that? No. Unless they're mind readers, and they're not, right? So prior to going in, I met with each of them one-on-one before I sat down and effectively job shadowed them, is what I was doing, and talked to them about what we were doing, and say that the university's expanding. We have a lot of opportunities opening up in HR. We cannot go and hire new people until we figure out how to best utilize the resources we have. And I bet there is other things you guys want to do. So let's talk about some of that, right? So what we did is, in this situation, and I could go on and on with the story, but what we did in this situation is socialized, and you're going to hear me use that word quite a bit, with the group first, what we were doing and why we were doing it. Otherwise, had I walked into those situations, I would have gotten nothing I needed. They would not have shared information because they're worried about their jobs, which makes sense, right? In a second scenario, I was working with a campus who does, they have an internal project management group that does a lot of construction, the renovations, and everything else on campus. One of the biggest issues with the group was stakeholders had a number of problems with communication, in the sense that if we were renovating a building and there were offices in that building, they would tell them on a Friday, we're starting renovations on Monday, so you're going to have to find new space. You know what it's like to find space on campuses, don't you? Well, yeah, impossible, right? So they told you have to find new space on a Friday around midday, and they have to be out of their space by Monday morning as construction starts, right? They also had, and we all bundled all this under communications issues. We also had communication issues where if we were redesigning one of the buildings, we would not get stakeholders involved. Their reason why is because if I get them involved, they might want things we can't do. So rather than have the conversation, we're just not going to ask them. We're going to do what we think we need to do. What do you think happens when people go back into the building? It doesn't work for them. Yeah, I see all the heads. It doesn't work for them, right? So what we did is go in to help first the project management group understand the value of communication and then work with stakeholders to help them understand that we're going to communicate with you better. What is it you need from us? But what do you think we needed to do first? Is there trust here? No. Nope. So we had to spend some time in this change in management initiative building trust between the stakeholder group, all the people on the campus, including students, right, and employees, and the project management group. Because there have been so many walls up, just going in and saying, this is what we're going to do going forward, didn't work. We could put all those processes in place. They were implementing them, but we need to spend time socializing the change and behind that, building trust, right? And in the third situation, working with a university who was very traditional in their marketing approach and this is how we market, this is the only way we market to students. We don't worry about ROI, it doesn't matter. With a new president within the university who says ROI is important, and I want to know the ROI of our marketing initiatives, I want to see more around social media. We need that marketing group to help us on this project. We can't put everything in place, processes, procedures, strategy around marketing without their input. They have to implement it. So we spent, in that case, about 2 weeks' time beforehand talking to the group about how what they're doing is working, but how can we make it even better to expand our reach? Right? As we go through, I want you to think about change initiatives you have going on within the university, regardless of how small you think they are. I had one situation out of a university where there were 5 people who were inputting data on customer information into a system every time a new customer. If you looked at the way the process was documented, it was 20 minutes to input that data. These people had been doing this work for, on average, 20 years, the 5 of them, so they had some longevity in the organization. New leadership team said, we got to shorten the time that takes done. I'd like it down to 10 minutes. He told the people, we're going to be shortening the process, we're going to do it in 10 minutes only. What's going through people's heads? Same kind of stuff. You don't need us anymore. You're going to be getting rid of some of us. Or maybe I'm staying, but am I going to be able to do this? I've been doing this job for 20 years. Am I going to be able to learn anything new? Talking with them beforehand, we explained nobody's going anywhere. You're going to have more work. We don't want to lose one of you. The problem is, as the company expands and we're hiring in other areas, we can't hire in this area yet. So we just want to make the job more efficient for you so it's not so stressful. You got a lot of new customers coming in. When we sat down and talked to each of them about the job, do you think any of them were doing it in 20 minutes? They've already changed that process. The longest time was 8. Some were down to 5. They wanted to make it 10. Think how happy the executives were when we got it down that low. And Ellen, I bet you are not the only one who is resistant to change. Yeah. I see pockets of resistance in every and we're going to talk about what makes people resistant to change. I've worked within organizations where some people seem really thrilled about change and everything's great. And then all of a sudden a change initiative launches, and they've always been fine in the past. And then you notice they've got, nope, bars are up, barriers are up, I'm not moving forward. So we'll talk about how do you get at resistance to change in our time together this morning. right? And how do we address some of those? But one of the most important things, and we'll talk about this quite a bit throughout the day, is taking the time to sell it throughout the organization, right? Everyone who's going to be impacted, you've got to take the time to sell it. And sometimes I have to take the time to sell it. I have to actually tell executives, you got to give me time to sell it. I work with some leaders within organizations, including within universities, who will say to me, socializing it, it sounds like you're having a little party. Are we actually doing any, am I paying you to do any work? Are you working? I have one executive, the very first time, every single one of his initiatives failed. No matter what he was doing, they failed. So he finally brought me in and said, help me understand what's going on with this. So I talked about socializing it, not the right word for him. I should have talked about getting commitment, getting buy-in, getting people on board, anything but socializing. He looks at me, raises an eyebrow, and said, is it like a little party? Do we need hats? Told him, just give me one project, I'm going to show you the value of it, right? And we did. Now, every time I go in and manage a project, I walk in to talk about what he has to do, and he literally has 2 party hats. Puts one on my head, puts one on his head, and says, let's go socialize. Yeah. He's got quite the little sense of humor, shall we say. But he's on board with it, and he understands the value. So sometimes when we want to get through a change initiative, we have to communicate to the people who want us to lead this change, who want this change to happen, that we have to get buy-in. We have to get commitment. We have to get people on board. We have to socialize it, whatever word works in your organization. So today, we're going to talk about the effects of change on the organization and on individuals within the organization. And really, more importantly, I want to talk about on the individuals, because that's really where your focus needs to be. We're going to talk about the value of socializing change as we go out the morning. We're going to talk about resistance to change, how to identify it and manage it, and engaging others in change, right? And we'll talk about communication best practices. I want you to leave today's session with a number of best practices to overcome resistance to change and encourage others in change, and you can take on this role whether you are leading the change or you are a change agent or somebody who's supporting and championing the change. Sometimes we are not leading the change, but we have to come along with change. So everything we talk about today will work in either case. And because I've already talked enough, what I'd like you to do at your tables is think about what are your challenges leading change or supporting change initiatives in your organization. So jot down a few ideas, talk amongst your table, and then I'm going to ask a couple tables to share those ideas if they would. So what are your challenges leading change or supporting change initiatives in your organization? Okay, why don't we get back together? So what I'd like is, at some of the tables, if you can share some of the challenges you face leading change or supporting change in your organization. So what are some? Go ahead, in the back. Okay, so what you're saying is when things are more, we have confidentiality, we don't socialize it, and they cause the most issues. I mean, you could socialize it. There's ways to do it, obviously. So what you're saying is we just don't do it. We don't, yeah. There are ways to socialize those things, obviously in maintaining confidentiality. So this is issue resolution stuff. Some of that too? Yeah, yeah. And that is common too, where we tend not to, and we fall back on, well, it's confidential, well, it's this, well, it's that. But there are ways to discuss it to make sure people understand without naming names, in a sense. Yep. And I know there was some in the back, but there was one up here. Go ahead. Yes. So the first one was, let's see how good my memory is. When we initiate change, we don't do enough of a job of helping people see the vision or the goal. So what happens is, the assumption is, am I just not doing my job well enough for you? Right? And the second one is so steeped in tradition within the culture, it's hard to change. And that includes hospitals. Hospitals, transportation is a biggie. The railroad system, yeah. So all of those, and that is a big resistor to change, is tradition. What I find is, and most change, maybe most is not quite the right word. With change, it really requires adapting the culture to change too within the organization. And we know what culture change takes. That is a huge, huge effort. And the best, normally when I look at change initiatives within and any kind of organization, it doesn't matter, but especially one steeped in tradition, is I look at how much of an impact, let's say, the change, the vision, the goal is going to have on that culture as it is today. And the individuals who are going to be most impacted, because we always know, especially within a university or within a hospital, with the university faculty, right? Within a hospital, it's the clinicians. That's my biggest resistance points, And then that helps me understand how much time I literally need to take before I even think of doing anything, right? To move forward that change in order to just get people to buy in, right? And get them to come along with me, even if they're not 100%, but we move along. I find it, within organizations, if I go into an organization and the biggest issue with the organization is that there's no trust. Think about that when I was telling you this morning with the project management group and talking to the stakeholders anytime they did any kind of construction or renovation project, right? We can certainly teach them to socialize, but it required first building trust, because they can socialize, nobody trusts them at all to get it done. So you need to build, and one of the best ways to do that is building relationships. You need relationships with people, right? I can't go and say that, Susanna, I'd like you to help me with this, and this is what we're trying to do, and are you on board? Susanna's like, you don't give me the time of day. Yeah, no, I'm not on board. You're on your own, right? So we really need to build those relationships first, because that's how we establish trust with people. We need to understand what's going on. The other thing that I tend to do with all my change initiatives, which I think is very helpful, is to be able to link it back to the individual and his or her department or division. So if I understand what's going on throughout the university and we have a big change initiative, it's much easier for me to go up to, let's say, Kathy. See, this is what happens when I move down. Now I see your name tags. I can call on you. And say to Kathy, I know that in your department, one of your biggest challenges is XYZ. We're about to do something in the organization that I think is going to help you with that challenge. Can I share that with you? Am I getting Kathy on board? Yeah, right? Kathy wants to learn more. She's a little bit more interested. She still might have her walls up a little bit about the change, but I'm starting conversations with them. Can I get one more challenge? Go ahead. Yes. So Kathy was saying trying to line up any kind of change or project they're trying to do with getting it done when people aren't all over campus or they have work going on or they have other initiatives, right? That is a big challenge, trying to find the time to do it. That was the big challenge with the university. I was working with the project management group. They can only work during the summer. There's still people on campus. It's not like they're not, but they can't start till the summer, and they got to be done by early September. Right? So those are big challenges. And some of the ways to address that is there's always going to be some stuff that's going to have to be done during not the best time for everybody. So by kind of selling it to them first, socializing it, getting them involved in when can we fit this in. So one of the things I tend to do is rather than say we're doing it at this time, let me partner with you to see when we can do it, because I know it's not quite convenient for you. Right? Thank you.
I once again have to thank Gina for providing us with one of her presentations. And if you have any doubts about this content, here on screen is her mail to contact her. And if you want more content and materials on this and other subjects related to business process, management, systems, and software, feel free to reach our website. Once more, thank you for your interest and see you next time. Bye.